Alright, what's up everyone? I think I got a pretty fun idea as a video today. I'm going to be going over the top 10 UFC fighters to have come off of Dana White's Contender series. And I'm just going to jump right into it right now. But first of all, before I start with my actual list, I just want to say there's so many good fighters who have came off the Contender series. So I just have a list of names here who are like really good fighters that easily could have made the list. It was a pretty hard cut. Like there's guys like Caio Borralho, like he's without a doubt going to be at least top 10 in the middleweight division. Guys like Asmat Mirzakhanov, he's got a fight with Volkan Oezdemir coming up. He's 12-0. I think he's ranked number 12 in light heavyweight right now. Carlos Ulberg's a promising prospect. Bo Nickel. Everyone knows Bo Nickel. Like he could easily be a future champion. Guys like Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, he's already done work in his division. He's ranked like number 9 right now. That was the hardest cut for me, in my opinion. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be mad if people disagreed. If you think he should be in the top 10, guys like Kevin Holland, Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson is part of the future, the lightweight division as well, of course. But, anyways, now I'm going to get into my actual top 10 list. Starting off at number 10, I got Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen, he's ranked number 11 in the middleweight division. And to be honest, he actually has some pretty impressive wins. Like Bruno Silva, he is 4-3 in the UFC. And like yes, he lost to Gerald Meerschaert, but Bruno Silva, he's such a weird fighter. Like he's always dangerous. Like Bruno Silva was kind of hurting him there, and Brendan Allen actually showed great power in that fight. He was able to knock down Bruno Silva after already being rocked himself, lock up the rear naked choke. He has a submission win over Kevin Holland. He submitted Andre Muniz. I know he's at least the only person in the UFC to have submitted Andre Muniz. He might be the only person in his entire career to have submitted Andre Muniz as well. And Andre Muniz is obviously no slouch on the ground. Like he submitted Jacare Souza, one of the greatest jiu-jitsu athletes in MMA history. So I think you got to have Brendan Allen on that list, especially when he has a win over one of those contenders like Kevin Holland, who was like just outside the top 10. So next up at number 9, I got Sodiq Yussu. Now, Sodiq Yussu is one of those weird ones on the list. I know there's going to be some people who say he hasn't done enough in the UFC yet and he doesn't deserve to be on the list. But I also know there's going to be those believers who say maybe even he deserves to be ranked even higher on the list because he really does have that potential. But for now, I'm just going to keep him at number 9. He's 13-2 overall, 6-1 in the UFC, and the only fight that he dropped in the UFC was to Arnold Allen, which is not a bad loss at all, especially considering he actually did good in that fight. Like Arnold Allen won 2 rounds to 1. He won 29-28. He's ranked number 11 in the featherweight division. He hasn't been as active as I would have liked to be, which is partially why I held him back at number 9. But I think easily going on with his career, he could easily creep his way up in these rankings. You know what I mean? Like I could see him in the top 5 of these contender series rankings, in my opinion, within the next few years. Next up at number 8, Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker is like, he's had his spurts in his career. At one point, people were saying he was the next guy to beat John Jones, and obviously he didn't live up to that. But then after that, he also, like, at one point, he was 4-4 in the UFC, dropping fights to guys like Thiago Santos, who a lot of people would call washed. I didn't think he was all that washed. Like, he was still putting on decent fights, but Johnny Walker wasn't doing the best, but especially as of late now, he's on a 3-fight winning streak with 3 pretty impressive wins. In his last 3 fights, he had a decision win over Anthony Smith, which it wasn't the best fight, of course, but still Anthony Smith, although yes, he is old, he was still ranked number 5 in the division at the time, so it is an impressive win for Johnny Walker. He TKO'd Paul Craig in like, I don't remember, something like a minute and a half, something like he TKO'd him really quick. And Paul Craig is still good, as we saw literally like 3 days ago with his TKO over Andre Muniz. And then he submitted Ion Cutelaba over at UFC 279, I believe. he has other great wins too. Like he has a win over Ryan Spann, who, in my opinion, Ryan Spann was that 11th guy for this list, and you can easily put him in the top 10. Like I don't blame you if you disagree with that. He, in my opinion, he's that 11th guy, but if you want to put him in the top 10, that's completely fine. So, although Johnny Walker hasn't quite lived up to the hype that he was originally given, he has still proven that he is a great fighter, one of the best to come off the Contender series, and now he's ranked number 5 in his division. Number 7, I got to go with Jack Della Maddalena. Um, I was a If this list was made like 3 weeks ago, I know a lot of you guys would be hating on me for this. You would think that he should be ranked higher because his hype train was so high. But after his last fight against Basil Hafez, I think a lot of you guys are going to agree with me. Some of you maybe even want him a little lower, but I don't see that in my opinion. Like, Jack Della Maddalena is elite. I don't care what anyone says about his last performance. He's 15-2. He's 5-0 in the UFC, and he's ranked number 13 in a division that is easily top 3 hardest divisions in the UFC to get into the rankings. And he did it. He has wins over Randy Brown, Danny Roberts, Ramazan Emeev, which sure it's not the greatest resume, but it's still really good wins. And in his last fight against Basil Hafez, what people need to realize, although yes, he went to split decision with the UFC debutant, and yes, that UFC debutant took the fight on short notice. In a sense, Jack Della Maddalena also took that fight on short notice. Like he was originally preparing for Sean Brady. He had to cut weight for Sean Brady. Then Sean Brady is out of the fight. Then they got him some other UFC debutant. I forget his name. Josiah Harrell, I think that was his name. He pulled out the day of the weigh-ins. Was not his fault. I'm pretty sure they found out something with his brain was going on. He had medical injuries, but definitely not his fault. But either way, that happened at UFC 290, right? So Jack Della Maddalena, now he's scratched from UFC 290. He doesn't know if he's going to get a fight. He starts putting the weight back on. Then he finds out in 1 week he has another fight against a third opponent that we don't know much about. Like, I'm sure he was able to find footage of his regional scene fights, and I'm sure he was able to study him for a bit, but like, Jack Della Maddalena legitimately had 1 week to prepare for that fight. And he had to do a second weight cut on top of that. So I don't think you can blame him too much for that fight. Jack Della Maddalena is still elite 100%. I think they're going to give him the Sean Brady fight again, and I think he's going to beat Sean Brady, and it'll just put a stamp on all of his new doubters that, like, yeah, this guy is definitely still elite. Moving on to number 6. I don't know if people are going to like this pick, but I definitely like it. Like, Mayra Bueno Silva, as she proved in her fight against Holly Holm, she is very good. 11-2, 6-2 in the UFC, and both of her losses in the UFC, I believe, came in the 125-pound division, which she is no longer a part of. She found her home in 135. She's also submitted Jillian Robertson, who was one of the best grapplers in women's MMA, which, like, that's a stamp. She has her win over Holly Holm. She submitted Holly Holm as well. She submitted Lena Landsberg with a knee bar. So, like, honestly, if you want to go and say that Mayra Bueno Silva has the best jiu-jitsu in MMA, I don't even hate that opinion. I think she's easily deserving of this number 6 spot on the list, and I think she's going to fight for the title next. I think she's going to fight Raquel Pennington for the vacant bantamweight title, and I haven't really looked into that fight that much yet, so I don't know who I would pick. But as an early prediction, without doing my research, I think Mayra Bueno Silva would win that fight. And I honestly think that this is our next champion, our next women's bantamweight champion. So moving on to the number 5 spot, I got Taila Santos. Again, this is another one that I think I'm going to have to explain to you guys. But she's 19-2 in MMA. She's 4-2 in the UFC. She had that one loss very early on in her UFC career. I think it was her first ever UFC fight. And then she had that loss to Valentina Shevchenko, which a lot of people, including myself, think that she won. Like, I've watched that Shevchenko fight twice now, which I know isn't a ton of times, but I've still went back and rewatched the fight after the original time, and I still think Taila Santos won that fight. The most damage that was done, sure, Valentina Shevchenko did the most damage, but what people need to realize is that big, like, bubble, that big thing that she had on her forehead right above her eye here was caused by a headbutt. So, in terms of visible damage, most of the visible damage that was on Taila Santos was all caused by a headbutt. Now, Taila Santos has a fight coming up against Erin Blanchfield, who is now probably, like, other than Alexa Grasso because she's the champion and she just beat Valentina Shevchenko, Erin Blanchfield's probably the most hyped up fighter in the women's flyweight division right now. And I think Taila Santos is going to go out there and remind you who she is. Like, I'm honestly picking Taila Santos over Erin Blanchfield. I think she's going to get it done. And I think she's going to get it done fairly dominantly. Like, I think she'll easily win at least 2 of the rounds. It'll be an easy to score 29-28 decision. She's going to go back. She's going to fight the winner of Shevchenko Grasso. If it's Shevchenko, she'll beat Shevchenko in the rematch. And if it's Alexa Grasso, she'll beat Alexa Grasso. Like, this is the next, in my opinion, this is 100% the next women's flyweight champion, without a doubt. So, next up at number 4, I got Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal is one of those guys who I don't think gets enough respect. After that Luque and Shavkat fight, he started getting some of the respect he deserves, but even still, like, this guy is such a dog, ranked number 8 in the welterweight division. I don't think a lot of people understand how hard it is to be ranked in the it's not just ranked in the welterweight division, ranked in the top 10, ranked in the top 8. He gave Shavkat Rakhmonov his hardest fight. He wobbled Shavkat Rakhmonov at one moment. He was hitting him with some good strikes. Like, Geoff Neal's fight to Shavkat Rakhmonov is like Gilbert Burns' fight to Khamzat Chimaev. Like, this is the fight where we found out, yes, Shavkat was very good, but he's human. Geoff Neal humanized Shavkat Rakhmonov. And he also has a pretty underrated resume, in my opinion, too. Like, a win over Vicente Luque, although a lot of people would say he hasn't looked the greatest recently, like, he hasn't looked the greatest against who? Like, he lost to Bilal Muhammad. Big deal. Like, everyone's losing to Bilal Muhammad now. And then, and then he went on and lost to Geoff Neal by knockout, which Geoff Neal, hands of steel, like, he's one of the hardest hitters in the welterweight division. You can't blame him for that. So Geoff Neal, he's got these good wins, man. Santiago Ponzinibbio, Mike Perry, Nico Price. He actually has a win himself over Bilal Muhammad, where he KO'd Bilal Muhammad. Like, although it was a while ago, still, like, Bilal Muhammad is ranked what, number 4, I think number 4 in the welterweight division now. A lot of people think he's next for the title shot, and although it was a while ago, Geoff Neal was able to KO this guy. It's like Geoff Neal is easily deserving of that number 4 spot, in my opinion. Number 3, Jailton Almei. Now, I'm going to explain this to you guys really quick. This is another one of those picks that I've made that I think everyone's either going to love me for or hate me for, but I need to explain to you my reasoning, okay? This guy is putting up Khamzat Chimaev numbers. Like, he's undefeated in the UFC. He's 5-0. He's ranked number 9 in his division. Sure, okay, maybe he doesn't have the greatest resume. As you see there, I only put 2 notable wins on the slide for him. But he beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik very dominantly. I'm pretty sure it was the first round. Submitted him there. He beat Shamil Abdurakhimov, who, yes, he was old. It's still a decent win, though. And listen to this. Jailton Almei, in his 5 UFC fights, has been hit a total of 2 times. He has 5 UFC fights, and he's been hit only 2 times. Like, that's literally Khamzat Chimaev numbers. Like, it's absolutely crazy. He has a fight coming up against Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades is a tough fight for anyone, especially for someone who's another grappler because Curtis Blades is arguably one of the best wrestlers we've seen in heavyweight history. But with his jiu-jitsu, and for a jiu-jitsu guy, he has pretty damn good wrestling too. I think he's going to beat Curtis Blades and he's going to become ranked top 5 in the heavyweight division. Like, this guy is right up there with Tom Aspinall, right up there with Sergey Pavlovich. Like, after his fight against Curtis Blades, I promise you guys, like, you guys are going to see he's right up there with those guys. Like, he could easily be a next champion too. I'm a huge believer in Tom Aspinall. I think he's going to be our next champion. But Jailton Almeida is right there with him. So next up at number 2, I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this coming. It's Sean O'Malley. Yes, I know he doesn't have the greatest resume, but he's 8-1 in the UFC. He's ranked number 2 in the bantamweight division, who a lot of people would actually argue is the best division in the whole UFC, right? I think it's the second best, maybe a third best. But either way, to be ranked in the bantamweight division is crazy. To be ranked in the top 10 in the bantamweight division is crazy. Ranked in the top 5, he's ranked number 2, and he's getting his title shot next against Aljamain Sterling. Do I think he's gonna beat Aljamain Sterling? No. I think Aljamain Sterling is gonna, to be honest, I think he's gonna dominate him. But Sean O'Malley could find that shot. Sean O'Malley could find that shot against anyone. And although his fight against Piotr Yan was close, I thought Piotr Yan took it. Like, still, this guy he's proven that he's at the top of one of the hardest divisions in the entire UFC. Like, he's earned his title shot, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are saying, like, the Piotr Yan fight was a robbery, which I don't think it was a robbery. I thought Piotr Yan won, but still, I don't think it was a robbery. But a lot of people are saying that he wasn't deserving of his title shot because, other than Piotr Yan, he has no ranked wins in the top 15. But that just makes it even crazier to me. Like, he was ranked number 13 maybe when he fought Piotr Yan, going against, in a lot of people's eyes, still the hardest fight in the entire bantamweight division. And you know what? He got it done. He had so many doubters and he got it done. So I really like this pick. I think Sean O'Malley has easily earned his number 2 spot on this list. Now at number 1, it's Jamahal Hill. I don't know what to tell you guys. I know for some reason I see this guy get a lot more hate than he deserves. I don't think he's deserving of any hate. This guy has worked his ass off to get to where he is. 12-1. His only loss that he dropped was a submission loss to Paul Craig. Say what you want about Paul Craig. That guy can beat anyone on any given night. It's so weird. He's beaten Magomed Ankalaev as well. That guy's also beaten Nikita Krylov. That guy is dangerous with his submission skills. So you can't blame Jamahal Hill for losing that fight. And since that fight, he's looked so good. Since that fight, he had his title win over Glover Teixeira, which a lot of people were thinking, oh, he's the fake champion because of the whole Yuri Prohaska thing, where Yuri Prohaska vacated the title. And then Jan Blachowicz and Magomed Ankalaev fought for it. It ended in a draw. They made Glover versus Hill on short notice, on like a month's notice. But I think Jamahal Hill would beat Yuri Prohaska. I truly do. Like, go look at what Jamahal Hill did to Glover Teixeira. Dominated him. Completely dominated him, like 50-45. And then go look at what Yuri Prohaska did to Glover Teixeira. He was down in that fight. Glover Teixeira was up 3-1 going into the fifth. The fifth round, Glover Teixeira rocked him, and for some reason made like a Michael Chandler type of mistake. He jumped on a guillotine as he had him rocked, and then the fight kept going on with like 30 seconds left. Yuri Prohaska submitted him. I'm not saying he got lucky, but you tell me whose win's more impressive. Like, Jamahal Hill, say what you want, his grappling defense, especially since that Paul Craig fight, has gotten really, really good. I don't think there's even guys like Magomed Ankalaev. Like, I don't think they'd be able to take Jamahal Hill down. And even if they do take him down, okay, they'd probably be able to take him down. I'll take that back. But Jamahal Hill, I'd say, would defend like 80% of the takedowns. And the times that he does get taken down, I think he'd be able to get back up pretty easily. Like, to be completely honest, especially against guys like Magomed Ankalaev. He has no submission threat. I don't think he has any submission wins in his entire career, actually. And then Yuri Prohaska submitted Glover Teixeira, and again, I don't want to call it lucky, but it's like that's not exactly something that's supposed to happen. Like Yuri Prohaska would not submit Jamahal Hill, and Jamahal Hill is better on the feet than all these guys. He packs a punch. First ever champion to come off of Dana White's Contender Series. Although he vacated the belt, I know he got injured, he tore his Achilles, so the belt is technically vacant now, but I still see him as my champion. Like Jamahal Hill, say what you want about him, he is really good. He's going to come back from his injury, and unless his injury has some serious effect on his career, he's going to come back and he's going to get the belt back. This guy is the best light heavyweight in the division. It's just the way it is. I truly think he's the best light heavyweight in the division. So I think he easily earns this number one spot. Only champion from Dana White's Contender Series. Well deserved. Number one best fighter to ever come off there. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it was a pretty cool idea. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on what you want me to do in the next video, let me know in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you later.